Imagine a single volcano changing the weather across the entire planet. Imagine that eruption creating famine, inspiring Frankenstein, and giving history what became known as the year without a summer. This is the extraordinary story of Mount Tambora, the colossal eruption of 1815, and the year the world seemed to forget what summer was. In April of 1815, on the remote Indonesian island of Sumbawa, Mount Tambora awoke with unimaginable force. After days of rumbling, the mountain erupted in one of the most powerful volcanic explosions in recorded human history. The blast could be heard more than 2,000 kilometers away. Entire villages disappeared beneath pyroclastic flows, while ash and pumice rained across the surrounding seas. Tens of thousands of people would eventually lose their lives from the eruption itself and the famine and disease that followed. Yet the greatest impact wasn't the explosion. It was what the volcano launched high into the atmosphere. Tambora hurled an enormous cloud of sulfur-rich gases into the stratosphere, where powerful winds carried it around the globe. These particles formed a thin veil that reflected sunlight back into space, reducing the amount of heat reaching Earth's surface. No one living at the time understood what had happened. In Europe and North America, few had even heard of Mount Tambora. But within months, they would all experience its consequences. By 1816, the weather had turned strangely unpredictable. Across New England, farmers watched frost destroy young crops in May. Then came an event almost impossible to believe. Snow fell in early June. Fields that should have been green lay frozen instead, and desperate families replanted their crops again and again, only to watch each harvest fail. Across Europe, conditions were even worse. Cold rain fell relentlessly through the growing season. Switzerland saw snow in the middle of summer. Harvests collapsed in Germany, while Ireland suffered devastating failures of its potato and oat crops. Food shortages spread rapidly, disease followed close behind, and grain prices soared to some of the highest levels seen in generations. Bread riots erupted as ordinary people struggled simply to survive. The strange weather reached far beyond Europe and North America. In southwestern China, disrupted monsoon rains caused widespread crop failures and famine. Around the world, communities searched desperately for explanations. Some blamed divine punishment. Others suspected comets or sunspots. No one realized the true cause lay thousands of kilometers away on a volcanic island most had never seen. But amid this global hardship, an unexpected story was unfolding beside Switzerland's Lake Geneva. The summer of 1816 was so cold and wet that a group of young writers found themselves trapped indoors for days at a rented villa called Villa Diodati. Among them were the famous poet Lord Byron, Percy Bysshe Shelley, the 18-year-old Mary Godwin, later Mary Shelley, and Byron's physician John Polidori. Unable to enjoy the outdoors, they entertained themselves by reading ghost stories. Then Byron proposed a challenge. Each person should write a terrifying tale of their own. That rainy summer changed literary history. Mary Shelley began developing the story that would become Frankenstein, one of the most influential novels ever written. Polidori, inspired by one of Byron's ideas, wrote The Vampyre, a story that helped shape the modern image of the sophisticated vampire and influenced generations of Gothic fiction that followed. None of them knew that a volcano on the other side of the world had helped bring them together indoors. Yet the gloomy skies, relentless storms, and eerie atmosphere of that extraordinary summer became part of the creative spark behind two classics of horror literature. Tambora's fingerprints appeared elsewhere as well. Observers across Europe described spectacular crimson sunsets, unlike anything they had seen before. Some historians and atmospheric scientists have suggested that the volcanic haze may even be reflected in the dramatic skies painted by the English artist J.M.W. Turner during this period. While that connection remains debated, the unusual sunsets themselves were very real, produced by sunlight scattering through tiny volcanic particles suspended high above the Earth. Gradually, the haze began to disappear. By 1818, temperatures slowly returned to normal. But the evidence of Tambora remained preserved in nature itself. Tree rings recorded years of stunted growth. Ice cores locked away layers of volcanic sulfate beneath Greenland and Antarctica. Together with historical records of failed harvests and soaring food prices, these clues allowed scientists more than a century later to connect one remote eruption to a worldwide climate disaster. The year without a summer reminds us that history is often shaped by forces no one can see. A volcano erupted on a distant island. Farmers in Vermont lost their crops. Families in Ireland went hungry. Communities in China faced famine. Strange red sunsets appeared over Europe. And inside a rain-soaked villa in Switzerland, a young woman imagined a scientist who dared to create life. None of these people knew they were connected. Today, we can trace that invisible thread across continents and through time, revealing how a single event can ripple through climate, agriculture, economics, art, and literature. It's a reminder that our world has always been deeply interconnected, even long before anyone understood just how connected it truly was. Sometimes history isn't changed by kings or armies. Sometimes it's changed by a mountain.